Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hindu Explainer series. I am Kushagra Goyal and very warm greetings from Law Prep Tutorial. So as you all can see that we're not recording in the studio, which means that the lockdowns are not completely over. On Sundays, we have the weekend lockdown in the place where we are located. All right. So nevertheless, on the Sunday newspaper, but before we get into that, some interesting doubts from all of you, right? Now, see, for those viewers who are enrolled students of Law Prep Tutorial, all right, you have your GK classes, you have your Hindu Explainer series, and apart from that, you have the monthly magazine, all right. Now, that is, in our best opinion, the best material to prepare you for prospective general knowledge or current affair questions, all right. For all those viewers who are not subscribed or who are not enrolled students at Law Prep Tutorial. That is why whenever we have announced new courses, we have asked you to enroll yourself. Being the oldest institution for CLAT preparation, we believe that we can provide students with the best platform to achieve their dream of becoming a successful student at NLUs. So even now, it is not too late. You can get in touch with the office, the numbers of which are provided in the description box if you want a quick revision for your general knowledge. Then moving on with the doubts, right? So first doubt a lot of you had was in relation to the case of Shafeen Jahan versus Ashokan KM, that in case you are asked a question regarding same-sex marriages in the legal GK section. As of today, same-sex marriage is not recognized under laws of India. That is the status quo, and that is how the answer to the question will also be. And as of today also, a petition is pending before the Supreme Court regarding the status of same-sex marriages, right? Therefore, any matter that is sub judice or is under the jurisdiction of the court pending their final decision is rarely asked. So there is highly unlikely that you would be asked a question on which the court has also not deliberated upon. All right. However, the answer as of today would be that same-sex marriages are not permissible in India today. Then moving on, another question was that how can you cover the most or events related to current affairs in the most efficient manner if you have not been watching the series but have been regularly reading the newspaper? See, at the end of the day, any candidate who asks me any question, I always tell them that, see, trust your preparation, all right? There is no one path to success in terms of getting admission in a competitive exam. There can be the best possible scenario, which is more likely or in all probability supposed to yield a positive result. However, otherwise also, trust your instincts, trust your own notes that you have been preparing. That is what I would say to that. Then another question was related to sports related news, right? That Copa America and the Euro Cup, is there a chance of question? You would be really surprised that judges exam for the Delhi judiciary also had questions from the Euro, the last Euro that had happened. All right, so definitely there is a chance of a question coming. However, see, the tournament is ongoing right now. There is no, who are the participants to a tournament is not likely to be a question that can come, right? Therefore, we need to wait for, but by the time the tournaments conclude, it will be very close to the examination, right? They will conclude almost a week before the real examination. So it is unlikely you may get a question. In AILET, definitely there's a chance that you may get a question related to that. Okay. But tomorrow we'll do a quick revision of what the history of Euro and Copa America has been. Copa America is the oldest continental football competition that happens. So on that note, I'll conclude with the doubts and let's dive into today's newspaper. So on the left hand side is news, political news related to how state of Jammu Kashmir in August 5, 2019, the central government had moved amendment acts under which The erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir was bifurcated into two union territories, one as Ladakh and the other as Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir was supposed to have its assembly similar to that in Pondicherry and Delhi. Now there is a meeting scheduled with the Prime Minister, so we need to wait what the Prime Minister discusses with Jammu and Kashmir leaders. This is the first real political engagement. If you all remember, all these political leaders who will be invited to the meeting had actually been arrested prior to the amendment and had remained in house arrest for the longest time period, right? So this is positive welcome steps for starting a political dialogue. Apart from this, on the front page, nothing of real note for us. On the sad side and in sporting news is maverick of Indian track and athletes and Padma Shri awardee Milkha Singh succumbed to COVID-19 yesterday, and he is considered the first real superstar from Indian athletes. And if you have watched the Farhan Akhtar biopic of Bhag Milkha Bhag, you would be very close to his life that way. So we'll be in the sports section talking about his. However, Milkha Singh's legacy is not just limited to his success back then, which in itself was in touching distance and shows the character and the talent of what he was. All right, we'll be covering those things, but he transcends beyond it. And I am an admitted fan of Milkha Singh. I have multiple times watched his races at the Olympics, Asian Games, and it's something that makes your heart swell. The amount of effort he put in back then when facilities in India were very limited and made the country proud internationally. So moving on, as this is a Sunday newspaper, so we don't have editorials. And while COVID-19 restrictions remain, the news on national newspaper is surrounded by this. All right. So moving on to the international section. All right. So the international section has one very important news for us, something that we had discussed. Prior to that, on the national news, no rise in black money in Swiss banks. Now, there is two things that you need to differentiate when you see such a headline. All right. Now, it does not mean anyone who parks money in an international bank is black money. What is black money per se is also something you may need to understand. Any money that is unaccounted for in India or money earned in India which remains unaccounted or for which you have not paid taxes becomes black money. Black money is something that became very prominent in the days of 1970s, that decade, when Indian taxes were very high. So there was a parallel black money economy that had developed, and since then the term has stuck with non-taxed income. Now, a lot of Indians park their income in international banks and particularly in Swiss banks because of the financial protection that they grant and also the interest rate that you may earn there. All right. Now there have been reports that right now the total amount of black money, or as money parked by Indian depositors in Swiss bank, has risen to over 20,000 crores, which is almost double the type of money that was present in 2019. Now, and this is the highest surge since past 13 years. Prime Minister Modi had come on the wave that he would bring all this money back to India. He would reveal the details. When Arun Jaitley was the finance minister, he had claimed that Indian government had 500 individuals who had parked money there. But since then, never has the details of who parked this money, how much money has been brought back. And our Prime Minister had also claimed if all this money is brought back, every person's bank account could swell to 15 lakh rupees. No of that money is in sight. But for us, two terms become important. What is black money and what does parking of money in another international bank means? Then moving on, so to the international section. All right. On the national level, not much of news. All right. Only 3.6% Indians have been vaccinated completely. But news from Iran, what was expected has been confirmed. That judiciary chief or the chief justice of Iran, that is Ibrahim Raisi, was elected as president of Iran. He will be the second in charge. All right, the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is the supreme leader. Below him is the president, and he won by 62% vote. However, this 62% vote is just 40 to 45% vote of the total Iranians. Moderates and liberal faction of Iranian political side were banned to contest from elections, and they had called for boycott of the elections in general. Therefore, now is the challenge before Ibrahim Raisi. He also lost out in 2017 to Hassan Rouhani, who is the current president. He will take over as president in the month of August. So him, the name, and his overall Iranian system of politics is something we have already covered. Now, he is a sanctioned person by US as a security risk. It needs to be seen whether these sanctions are lifted or not. He has promised to curb out corruption. As judiciary chief, he had taken steps to curb out corruption also. So therefore, that becomes an important news, that who is the recently elected president of Iran. What position did he hold previously? That was the chief justice in Iran. He was also the front runner in the previous election but had lost out to Hassan Rouhani. Now, Hassan Rouhani cannot run because in Iran you can only run for 2 consecutive terms. He can come back and run for presidency 4 years later, but Ibrahim Raisi is now, and he is believed to be very close to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who is the supreme leader there. All right. Apart from this, on the international news from North Korea, Kim Jong-un tightens control over. North Korea is also a communist party, so Xi Jinping equivalent in North Korea is Kim Jong-un. Apart from that, Ebola outbreak in Guinea is over as per WHO. Not much relevant for us. Then there are elections due in Russia next year, and Vladimir Putin and his political party, that is United Russia. So the name of the political party from where Vladimir Putin belongs to, which is United Russia, is something that you can note down. Then moving on science and technology, is one important news which in general all of you should give a read, is are your staple rice and wheat losing their nutrients? This is something that definitely Indians, either your staple food is wheat or rice, therefore the nutrient that you consume when you consume the carbs from rice and wheat are in generally falling short. In a human body not just needs basic carb, but it also needs some micronutrients from different foods. Therefore, you need to diversify your diet. Then on the FAQ section, row over the study on bat viruses in Nagaland. Now, the controversy is whether this was permitted, what was confirmed, what was the funding, what was discussed, all of this in funding. In this research, not much relevant from our perspective. Then on the right hand side, left hand side, a buzz with cicadae. This is a insect that comes out in a decade or 13 to 17 years. This is the brood X, that is the 10th generation of broods who will come out, and they are primarily found in eastern United States. But what is more relevant for us in terms of COVID-19, all right, is the debate about gain of function research. In case the COVID-19 virus was lab created, all right, if it was lab created, then it could be a produce of gain of function research. Now, what is gain of function is something you may need to note down. You may be asked a question, what is gain of function in terms of if there is a passage on COVID-19? So gain of function is basically, see, you know what would be a lab created virus? You alter a naturally existing virus. Now, when you naturally do it, or you artificially change the modification or amend how a virus is, all right, then it is known as gain of function. Why do we do it? So we add something more to the DNA of the virus to see whether it transmits more and find possible solutions. gain of function research happens so that in case a mutation happens in future, we already have treatments for it. A counter to it is the loss of function research, where we try to introduce elements to reduce a disease, all right, or to reduce its transmissibility or effectiveness. So that is loss of function. Both of them are human done research, all right. Now there is a risk that should we do it, one is ethical and second is the security risk. Even if COVID-19 itself was not a lab created virus, there is a huge risk that people who work in these labs and first they are at risk, then people related to them, and it can start a chain. The second risk is that these can be used as bioweapons. Gain of function research can be used as bioweapons against populations. So therefore now there is a call for more transparency in terms of these research that is taking place across the world. Apart from that, the Delta plus and an emerging public health threat. So we know about the Delta variant, which is B1617.2. Now there is a Delta plus variant that has also been identified, which is 2.1. And it is seen that a mutation strand within it, which is the K417N, could possibly mutate further to make coronavirus escape the possible treatments that we possess right now. As of right now, we only care about Delta variant as it is. The official name has not been given to this as Delta plus. All right, it has also not been identified as a variant of concern. Then moving on to the profile section is the profile of NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Originally propounded in 1949 in response to the rising threat of USSR, or containment of communism. So NATO currently has 30 members, all right, beginning with the original 12, which were Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, UK, and United States. And later on now, other 18 members have joined the NATO, all right. This is pictures from the NATO website itself. So it has 30 members as of today. The purpose of NATO is a military alliance, which means attack on one is an attack on all. It also is part of military security, all right. So the United States, which is the largest economy in terms of this and the military superpower, all right, weighs in 70% of the expenditure, all right. It is seen as a military heavyweight in terms of why any country would feel or think twice before taking a war against any of them or any of the member nations. But for the first time in this year's summit of NATO, it called for China as a threat as a military threat. It also is part of larger US foreign policy, which claims that China is the new threat that the world faces, all right. It was USSR earlier when NATO was originally founded, and now it seems NATO has found a new purpose, all right. So NATO, the name of the organization, who heads it, all right, which is Paul Henry Spark, right now is the Secretary General, all right. Sorry, this is the second Secretary General when he had made a statement against Joseph Stalin, all right. What you need to know as of right now, it's very unlikely you may get a question from NATO, all right, because nothing of real concrete has come out of the NATO summit, but it has identified China as a threat, all right. So that is about it. Right now, 30 members. When it was founded, what is the full form, who is the largest power within it, can be the prospective questions, all right. Then apart from this, on the profile section is Apple Daily, which is the name of the newspaper organization which the Chinese Communist Party has recently made a raid on and has arrested its editors. So Apple Daily is the organization, all right. It is also confirms what was earlier thought, that the new security law in Hong Kong would be the end of democracy in Hong Kong per se. Alright, and then on the right hand side is the news. Satya Nadella, Indian born, Indian American now, is confirmed as the next chairman of Microsoft Inc. Microsoft, the second largest company in terms of market value, alright, is now slated to appoint Satya Nadella, Indian born, as its chairman. He will be the third chairman of Microsoft after Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates himself. Alright, he was currently the chief executive officer and will now take over as this. He is also the second person only in the history of Microsoft to be holding two positions simultaneously, that is the CEO and chairman itself. Alright, so that in itself is a huge vindication of what work he has done. He has shifted Microsoft into the new century, as it is called, or a Nadellaissance, as the term has been coined in Silicon Valley. Alright, then apart from this, on the economic news, nothing of real note. So moving on is the Flying Sikh, as he was called, Milkha Singh. So his commendable career highlights were, here is the photo finish picture of him finishing 4th, beating the world record as it had stood in that time during his run. Alright, and marginally missing out on the bronze medal at Rome Olympics in 1960. But in 1958, he had won the 440 yards gold medal at the British Commonwealth Games in Cardiff. Alright, and in 1958 only, he had won the 200 and 400 meter Asian Games gold. Then in 1962, the next Asian Games that he competed in, he won the 400 meter gold once again and the 4 into 400 meter relay gold medal. So these were his career highlights. Padma Shri awardee Milkha Singh was the original superstar of Indian athletes. He was given the name of Flying Sikh. Alright, in terms of his life in itself, has a generation of athletes who allude to him or how he inspired them to be what they are today. Apart from this, on the sporting side, nothing of real note for us. The first day or day two, as it is officially called, of the World Test Championship is ongoing. Virat Kohli and Ajinkya Rahane are on the crease today. And let's see what is the result of the World Test Championship. Apart from this, so what to note in today's newspaper, first is about the Iran presidency, second Satya Nadella, and third is the nomenclature in terms of black money, what it means, and parking money outside. And lastly is the news about NATO. Alright, a little bit of history of NATO. On that note, I'll conclude for the day and I will see you all tomorrow. Take care until then.